Thanks for coming. It's nice to speak to all of you. Crowd, of course. It's this is a very appropriate conference heading, of course. Challenges into opportunities, because what we're seeing today is major challenges, of course. South of the border, with our friend Donald Trump, and of course, we're going through a federal election right now. So the changes are very, very important. In our research, we're going to show you our works, but good news, bad news. The good news is that there's lots of opportunities from change. Change always brings opportunities. Crisis can become opportunities. The bad news, we can tell you from our research, we believe that if you're with an organization today, the probability of your change process to adapt to what's going on is failing. So we're going to show you why. So on the next slide, which I'm giving notes, which one is mine, which is Loria's. And the thing is, when you look at all the research in change management, 3/4 of change management does not work. It fails within a certain period of time. It's just simply not working. Which really kind of interested us, and that's the basis to all our research. We wanted to know, well, if it's always failing, and it fails 3/4 of the time, then why does it succeed? Are there certain factors, if you really go deep into change, are there certain factors that rise up to the surface in this time to actually show us what change is? So this is the deal. What we know today, the ability to adapt to change, to carry on, to keep moving, is a couple of things for sure. It really has to, you have to almost do away with what we've done before. It was a very good presentation this morning from our key speaker about change and how things are changing. And to adapt to change, we can't do what was done before. People quote Albert Einstein law on everything. But one of the apparent quotes he has is that you can't create solutions today using the same approach that created the problem in the first place. And what we're seeing in a lot of organizations, they're just repeating what they did before, because that's the way it was done. Now, I spent 35 years as a senior executive, both in the federal and provincial governments and with corporations. And believe me, what we're showing you here today is very applicable to what we've seen in the past with organizations. Is this your part here? I said,
That is my pleasure. Thank you.
Don't worry. I'll get out of your way.
So, dear colleagues, in this slide, we would like to walk you through the foundation of our study, which was quantitative in nature. We wanted to apply a very rigorous statistical approach to look through the lens of data. And we actually used a very broad and data-rich study, 2022, 2023, Canadian government and public service employees, almost 190,000 responses. And the study, the survey itself was very data-driven, 100 questions. So we analyzed quite a lot. And why? What was the goal of that? We wanted not to just look for patterns, but to prove the statistical significance and to see the relationships between data, between variables and how they behave. Not just accidental patterns, but how they actually correlate with each other.
What we did a few years ago at UCW, we looked at the interconnectivity of things. We looked at particularly the green circle there is the external environmental factors that we often look at with environmental scanning, very common stuff. But as you see, that outside circle includes the following, includes the common things you see: competitors, demography, things like the economy, social, cultural issues, politics, and law. You know about that. That's the outside circle. Inside, we also have, as you know, looking at the internal environment of an organization. That encompasses things like the culture, which shapes the structure, which creates the systems, which has an impact on the organizational climate, which produces the outcomes of that organization. The research we did a few years ago that was published shows something you know. That outside circle is moving one hell of a lot faster than the inside circle. The inside circle can't keep up. It's not meshing. It should be meshing to move forward, but it's not. The outside one's moving very rapid, very, very, very rapidly. And the inside is not keeping up. So there's a few places here that you see that. Obviously, artificial AI, what's happening in many organizations, big impact. Challenges, the culture, diversity, equity, inclusion. Oh, is that good or is it bad? If you ask Donald Trump, not so good. If you ask many corporations, I'm part of something called the Issues Management Council of major corporations in America, where we had a discussion about this, and they're freaking out. They don't like the change, but instead of saying, well, we don't believe in diversity, equity, inclusion, they're softening the language. That's how they're changing and adapting to Donald Trump.
Oh, this is a very core slide to our data, to our story. Here we found out that 87.1% of the variance in change management is attributed to only 4 factors. And the single one, the unique contribution of 53% is the effective communication of mission, vision, and goal. Just think of that. Not the mission, goal, and themselves, but how we communicate to our people, right? And they're followed by support for high service levels, or contributes to goals, having clear objectives. This is everything. Think of that. Think of the metaphor. We're driving through the fog. We don't know where to go. We're confused and we're scared, right? So whether we have this information fog, we're scared of the change. Whether we have the headlight, we are less confused. We know exactly where to go. And that's what communication and leadership in this instance does for us in the time of change. How do I get links?
I think there's another one coming out, right?
We have 3 hypotheses.
This is coming out.
Right, that we wanted to test. And the first one was communication drives change. And this slide confirms, yes, exactly. The greatest single predictive power for successful change management is the level of understanding by employees of their workplace mission, vision, and goals. We'll talk about it later, but pretty much it comes down to more human questions. Why, how, and what? Why are we doing what we're doing? Why do we have to change what is not broken? Right. So to answer that question is very important for people who are experiencing change to get more comfortable with it, to be less scared about the change. In the next one, consequences. Workplaces with high effective communication will also be those who provide the highest ratings for management of change. They're happy with communication. They're happy with the change management. Very, very powerful correlation we found. And again, this is not just singular patterns. We're speaking about very strong, statistically significant and analytically round analysis that speaks to that. Hypothesis number 2, while effective communication of mission, vision goals is a single collective predictor of successful change, this variable itself is very strongly influenced by employee training. That creates what we call the readiness for change. So it's important to know why we're doing what we're doing, why we're changing the system, the environment, but we also need to be prepared. We need to be trained to experience, to go through this change together. And finally, the third hypothesis was effective communication of mission, vision, and goals in the change process positively correlates with addressing the constituent components of fear of change. Here we're going to the emotional component of that. When people are understanding the mission, vision, goals, when they're trained enough to go together through the change, the feeling of fear of change decreases significantly. And again, for the same reason we talked about already, we're driving through the fog with headlights. We know where we're going. We are not scared about it. To put it in a more human perspective. Yes, the next one will be yours, Elaine.
All right. So this is one of the things we looked at. We said, well, I wonder if it really makes a difference if you do these things or don't do these things. We know from our experiences and your experiences that often change does not work. We had a look at these the top 10 organizations, workplaces within the federal government. Now remember, 90 departments, 190,000 employees. These people right across the country who affect what your life is every day. And we looked at the top 10 average. Who's doing the best on change management? Well, guess what? There was a complete correlation, a complete alignment with those people also communicating their mission, vision, and goals very well. The employees are also saying support for high levels of service. The work contributes to the goals and having clear objectives. Those are the strongest indicators of the top layer of people who are doing change management well. Now, here's the problem. Most don't. So if you look at the ones that, these are the ones below average, the bottom 10. When you look at those 90 departments, and these are huge departments, 190,000 people, the ones who are not doing well on change management, and overall, it's over 50% in the federal government. These are big agencies. And their approaches are very similar to what a lot of organizations do with change. The bottom ones, what else are they not doing well? Oh, guess what? Communicating their mission and vision, support for high services, the work contributing to goals, clear work objectives. They don't have that. They say they do with their mission statements, which are on some website somewhere, but it's not resonating. So, this is what yours is?
I can take this one.
Okay. So when we looked at the questions, again, 190,000 employees, we were really looking at what's going on here? How can we help things? How can they move forward? And I believe my partner here will be done. We go backwards here.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay.
You.
Again, so here we're talking about the emotional aspect, how people perceive change, how they navigate through change. Again, bringing up the analogy of the fog, how do we navigate through that fog of emotions here, right? When people feel they lack control, they lose control, there's a whole bunch of negative emotions associated with that, understandably, right? And from the other hand, if they feel empowered, if they feel they are in control, they know, they understand why they're experiencing, why we're going through the change, they're trained enough, as we saw that component too, they associate positive emotions with change, and obviously they're way better equipped to accept this change, right? And to follow through the change. Conclusions. This slide appeals directly to our academic environment, right? And it's very interesting. In our organizations, it's pretty common to have this canopy of what we call silos of excellence.
Like my spot from a boat real fast.
We have this culture of excellence existing in different departments. But what we're actually looking for is the synergy of those, not silos, but togetherness, right? So how do we increase the chance that change goes throughout the organization, right? Again, the silos of excellence, which come from the lack of communication, might result and will result in misalignment, contradiction, and confusion, duplication. So how do we overcome that? How do we create this synergetic effect? Through communication. The answer is very clear and very loud through the data that we discovered, through the patterns that are statistically significant and analytically grounded.
Yeah. So just a couple of things here, just to close it off. We could click the other one too. The story really for you is this is pretty deep research, pretty academic stuff that goes over a huge volume of employees, 190,000, all kinds of different departments. Yes, it does have application to any organization, including academia. Ask yourself the question, as where you said, many departments, many silos of excellence in every department. How well do you talk to each other? How well do you coordinate? How well do you collaborate? Do you have a network of organizations? Do you have a web that actually talks to each other, or do you operate in silos? How is your mission, vision, values, statement, and the measurements working out? Are they just words on paper? Or if you have a professor, a student, anybody, a stakeholder out there, do they actually understand what it means to them personally? When we look at the change processes, if they don't get it personally, what does it mean to me? It will fail. 100% it will fail. Not 75%, 100%. By the way, do you have a change management plan? So every organization, do you have a formal change management plan? Are you building the plane as you're flying it? And I think so. I hope not. Because if you are, then you don't have a compass, you don't have a direction, you don't even have a landing field. You're just flying around in circles until you crash. So again, the research shows, ask yourself, does your change plan include very effective communication? What your mission, your vision, your measures, and does it resonate in the heart of the people who work there, your students and the communities? Go back and ask yourself, have a look at your change management plan. See if you find. Thanks for coming. Thanks.
What I know about change management for you, I taught your class. No, there's just two things. One is I was going to say, I really like when you touched on control, because I always think agency and control is a real important part for staff to feel. But what amazes me, and this is more just a thought I wanted to share with everyone, is how most of the universities teach this, how their professors research it and understand it so well, and the lack of implementation at our universities. And I don't know if you've thought about this, but how can we get our professors to bring this to the administrative side? I work on both sides, so that's why I can say this. Why don't the universities use more about what's factual? The research has been done, the facts are there. Why can't we get the universities to do it?
Yes, as a students, you taught, learn more from you than anywhere else. By the way, Harvard University is out class. In UCW, God bless their heart, it's an elective. How many universities here have change management as a mandatory course embedded in your system? Or is it one of these throwaway things? Whatever that is, let the students have a grant of that. Well, do you? Do you know what that is? You have a class on it? Is it mandatory? Is it not mandatory to know what change management is today when the world is changing? This is ridiculous. How could you not? You're a physician. Would you not know the human body? Don't you know the organizational body? You've never studied anywhere. You don't teach you. You don't understand the skeletal system, the brain, the systems, all the ones that work. I guess not. We don't have a change management plan. And things are changing. She's got the way. It's great. Sure.
One of the things that's emerging pretty clearly is that we need to change really quickly, given what's happening in the world. The universities are, as we see, intensely conservative institutions of other structures. So what would happen? What would prevent the university from re-examining the tripartite degree structure? Bachelor's, master's, doctorate. That's rooted in the Middle Ages. Does it serve us anymore? Or does it only allow us to replicate ourselves? What would prevent a university from re-examining curricula and the qualifications that it issues in the context?
It's a tough question. You could have one.
And that's exactly what we spoke about, right? Now we talk about the silos of excellence, right? But also quite often we bring the old practices, right, from back in the day, which don't serve us now, which don't work today, right? So how do we find, as Eli was speaking about, is real, right? The internal change and external change, we will never catch up, but we should try, right? And for us, the research finding the alignment between our own processes and the call for change. Again, communication of research findings, communication of necessity, and trying to find the new answers, not trying the best.
Sir, if I may just very quickly, what we've discovered in our research, when I was with the RCMP, God bless their heart, Tip, for 3 years, the National Change Management Program. Number one issue they were asked to do by the federal government was change your culture. So the first thing I think you should start with, all of us, look at our culture, mission, values, all those wonderful words. Oh, what is the real culture? Is it top-down communications? Is it bottom-up? Is it synergies? Is it a collectivity? Is it an ecosystem? Or is it a mechanistic system where you open up Frederick Taylor to 1920 and say, wow, all right, let's move this one here, move this block here, move this one here. No, it's an organic system. It's a complex adaptive system. We really have a hard time seeming to adjust to that. It's a very old institution, academia, really hard to change. The culture is almost impossible to change, it seems. We couldn't change it at the RCP. Still a mess.
The question in the university world is, who would go first? If a very prestigious school like Harvard decided to do that, people would follow. If a less well-known university simply separate itself from the ecosystem, and its degrees or this issue, whatever their issue, would not be valued.
Well, sir, I think we got that upside down with due respect. I think the Harvards and the Stanfords of this world are so deeply rooted and embedded, they'll never change. Places like our places, we're the cutting edge of change. We're unique. We're more agile and more flexible, and we can come up with ideas. And we don't have those constraints as the big machine has over at Harvard to other places. We don't have the big machine. We are flexible and we're adaptable. We could lead the way. Matt, yes.
I would say, continuing with this, so then how would you try to legitimize those changes in the field? Because I know what he means, that if Harvard changes, their start German bachelor's, master's, PhD, and then, everybody will follow it and assume it's, valuable. But if smaller institutions do it, how do they communicate that out?
The truth of the pie is in the taste. What do we need? First of all, recognize what is the need out there. Change management processes ask two fundamental questions. What's the urgency? What's the purpose? With the urgency, if it's not clear today what's happening with the world around us, we're really missing the boat. So we could grab that with the lapels and shape it and get involved with the understanding the urgency of change, what it means to organizations and people, and all those kind of people, with the purpose of creating something better. Harvard to those places, I don't know anymore. I don't know. To quote Elon Musk, am I finished? When he commented about the economic advisor to Donald Trump, who's from Harvard, who says, I know everything because I'm from Harvard, so I'm advising Trump on trade policy. As Elon Musk said, what the hell does he know? He said, this is it. I think the reference for those two institutions are wrong.
If I could just put another lens on it and say that agility is what is needed.
Yeah.
And even the Harvards, the universities, although they have their foundations, know that in order to be successful, they have to have graduates who get jobs. In order to get jobs, you don't necessarily need people who steps.
It's a good option.
What you need is the skills the employer is looking for. For the Harvards and those guys, where they're going is where we are, and that is to provide training for careers, and therefore they are doing boot camps, which are short-term, very focused education to meet a need. And so that's how I see it going forward. You always need the foundational knowledge and foundations of success, but for graduates, what they want is beyond knowledge. What am I going to do with this knowledge? And am I going to get paid afterwards to get all the money back that I invested into education? And Harvard and those guys. So I think agility is where we need, and that's where I think the private sector has more leverage, because we can change faster than a big ship, that tanker that takes ages to change. We're like the yacht that just catches the wind, just pulls a sail, and we're there. So that's my comment on listening.
Beautifully said. You want to add, Doctor?
Yes, I did actually. And I totally support this perspective. For me, it's very similar to what I'm very familiar with. I originally come from the industry, from business sector. I work with Pfizer, and that's where I see a lot of similarity with private sector institutions. It's way more agile, and we respond to business needs first and foremost, right? And that's very important. And it's nothing to be ashamed of. It's actually something to breathe and use and utilize, right? And
I was just going to say in answer to yours, because it's a very good question too, and I agree with what everyone's saying, but we got to decide, what do we want to be? Do we want to be someone who looks at us because we're hardworking or special? Or do we want to be something that changes people's lives dramatically in the fastest amount of time as possible? And then once we decide what we want to do, it's not always easy to be what you want to be. Sometimes you're never going to be looked up at as the best, but you know that you're being what you want to be. And the one example I like to give is the private college system. When I immigrated to this country in 1989, it was 3% of the learners in this province went to private colleges. Now it's over 40% of learners go to private colleges. I used to own private colleges. So you see the metamorphosis that private colleges have played in the education system. No one would have thought that in 1989, but look at what it does now. So I think universities, the independent private universities, have to make the same commitment. We're not going to listen to what people say we should do. We're going to do what our goal, our mission, and our values are, and we're going to live by that. And we can change the industry, and by changing the industry, we can change the work.
Absolutely. It's not what we want to see, it's what we need to be tight. What we need to be is exactly what everybody's saying. We representing what the folks out there, their students, my students, your students say, how does this help me in the workplace anyway? All this book. That's what we talk about every time we have a class. When you go back there in the workplace, here's how this is going to help you, by the way. This is how it applies, application of this stuff, not the theory. Submit. Yes, sir.
This in part is probably the way change is viewed. It's like we're in a storm. And if you're in a storm, one hard decision. Really maybe change has to be looked at as not a storm. It's something that's, when you understand it, there's a water sense a little bit, and you can be more collaborative, take decisions in a more order. And a brother going for a strong reader that's going to get that shit through because it's sick in his head. Is that being part of it?
Well, you're saying something very important. And if I may take that analogy just a little bit further, we look at this thing we call the Abaca wave. In other words, here's nice and calm. The storm comes, well, wow, we've got to jump into it. We deal with the crisis management, change management, and we take some actions, and then it settles down. And it goes into a calm stage. That calm stage, as it's shown in Complexity, Science, and Chaos there, is never exactly the same as it was before. And then it's going to come again, another storm, and again, we go down and we apply, hopefully, something maybe a little different than what we applied before. We learn from the past, but we engage on it because now it's going to come down. But when it goes up again, it's a different storm. It's not exactly the same. Then it levels out to a point not the same as before.
Again, add to that, we have called situational leadership, right? So I really strong and depend on the situation, what kind of leader we should be. That's what we teach our students, this concept of learn. We adapt, we must be agile, we cannot be the same leader in different situations. No matter what we are naturally, we have to adapt. We have to adapt our style.
No one size fits all.
Yeah, quite. Like our
Lucky Maria, thank you.
Okay, I don't even. Hey, you've got some thus. The hard questions go to Maria. Like if you want,
Thank you, everyone.
thank you. Thanks a lot. Sentence.